Hello everyone, my name is Caylene and welcome to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be crocheting this drawstring bag with frills. It's easy for beginners and you only have to know the most basic crochet stitches to make this bag. For this project, I'm going to be using light worsted weight milk cotton yarn with a 4.5mm hook. You should also prepare something to measure with, a pair of scissors, and a yarn needle, and it's also helpful to have a few stitch markers. Once you have all the materials, let's get started. To get started on this project, make a slip knot. Then I'm going to make 22 chains. Once you have 22 chains, make a single crochet into the bottom loop of the second chain from your hook. Then make another single crochet in the same way into the next chain. Now continue doing this all the way down the chain until you only have one chain remaining. I'm now at the end of the chain with one single crochet in each chain. There's one chain remaining and we're going to put 3 single crochets into this last chain. So go ahead and make your first single crochet. Now rotate your work a little and make the second single crochet and hold this yarn tail down against your work, and we're going to make the single crochet over this yarn tail. Now rotate a little more and make the third single crochet, remembering to hold this yarn tail down. Now we have 3 single crochets in this last chain, and you will also notice that your work is now upside down. Now we're going to be working into the remaining chain loops, the opposite side of those stitches. So go ahead and make one single crochet into the next stitch. And another one. Remember to hold this yarn tail down. And you can give this yarn tail a little pull, which tightens up the gap here. Now continue working one single crochet into each stitch until you only have one stitch remaining here. I've worked one single crochet into every stitch and now I have one stitch remaining. We're going to work 2 single crochets into this last stitch. Now join with a slip stitch into the top of the first single crochet. Now we are done with the bag base. And my work is about 13 centimeters across. Now that we are finished with the bag base with a total of 44 stitches, we'll now begin making the body of the bag. Begin with chain 2. In this project, this chain of 2 will never count as a stitch. Now make the first double crochet into the same stitch. Then simply make one double crochet into every stitch all the way around. And I will meet you back at the end of the round and tell you what to do next. I'm back at the end of the round and you should have a total of 44 double crochets. There is a slip stitch at the base of your beginning chain of 2. You're going to skip all of that and make a slip stitch into the top of the first double crochet. And we're finished with round 1, and this is how the outside of your bag should begin to look. To begin round 2, chain 2. Then turn your work so that you're looking at the inside of your bag, which is the wrong side of your work. Now we're going to be working in the other direction. Now you can mark the top of the first double crochet of the previous round where you made the join. This helps to keep you from accidentally skipping the last stitch at the end of this round. Now to continue, make 1 double crochet into the last stitch of the previous round. Now continue to make 1 double crochet into every single stitch all the way around. And I'll meet you again at the end of the round. I've come to the end of the second round where my stitch marker is, so I'll make my last double crochet. Then join with a slip stitch into the top of the first double crochet. Then to begin the next round, chain 2, then turn your work back to the outside of your bag. And you might wonder why I'm telling you to turn your work at the beginning of each round, and this is because it keeps the seam straight and it gives the bag a nice texture. So now you're going to repeat the first and second round until your work measures about 5 centimeters from the base of your bag. I'm back again, and it took me 4 rounds to get to 5 centimeters. And because I have an even number of rows, the wrong side of double crochets is facing out in my top row. But if you happen to have the right side facing out, adjust to make an even number of rows. Once you have an even number of rows, also check that you have a total of 44 stitches, and then we'll begin adding the frills. So with an even number of rows, you should be looking at the inside of your bag. Before making the frills, you're going to join this last round a little differently. Make a slip stitch into the second chain from the bottom. Now we're using this chain only in this round just for joining. It still does not count as a stitch. Now turn your work so that you're looking at the outside of your bag. Now make a slip stitch into the front loop of the first stitch. Now use your stitch marker to mark the back loop of this stitch so that you can easily locate this later. To make the frills, we're going to be working only into the front loop of each stitch, so it's the loop that is closest to you. Begin with chain 4, then make a slip stitch into the front loop of the next stitch. Again, chain 4, then make a slip stitch into the front loop of the next stitch. Then repeat. Chain 4, then slip stitch into the front loop of the next stitch. So continue doing this all the way around, and I'll meet you back at the end of the round. I've come to the end of the round, and I've just made a slip stitch into the front loop of the last stitch. To finish off this round, chain 4. Then you're going to make 2 slip stitches, one into the top of the chain below where you made the first slip stitch at the beginning of the round, then another one into the back loop of the first stitch where your stitch marker is. Now we will begin the next round. If you take a look inside the bag, you'll see a line of unworked back loops. We're now going to be working into these back loops. So begin with chain 1. Then without turning your work, make a single crochet back into the same stitch. Then make another single crochet into the next stitch. And another one into the next stitch. Now continue making one single crochet into all of these back loops. By the end of the round, you should have 44 single crochets. To finish off, join with a slip stitch into the top of the first single crochet. And to begin the next round, chain 2, turn your work. Then you're going to repeat exactly what you did in round 2. So make a double crochet into the first stitch. Then continue with one double crochet into every stitch. Then you're going to join the same way as before and turn your work at the beginning of each round. Now all you have to do is repeat this row of double crochets over and over until your bag is about 15 centimeters high. So go ahead and pause the video and I'll meet you back when we're done. I'm all done with my double crochets, and it took me 10 rounds of double crochets to get to 15 centimeters. It's not exactly 15 centimeters by the way, it's actually closer to 16 centimeters, so you don't have to be precise and you can adjust the number of rows to your liking, but I recommend that you have the right side of your last row of double crochets facing out. This makes it easier for you to move on to the final round. You should also double check that you have a total of 44 stitches. Once you're ready, we'll move on to the final round. Assuming that you have the right side facing out, we'll begin the last round. Without turning your work, begin with chain 1. Then make 2 single crochets into the same stitch. Now chain 2. Then make 1 more single crochet into the same stitch. So you should have 3 single crochets in the same stitch with chain 2 after the second one. Now do the same into the next stitch. 2 single crochets into the next stitch. Chain 2. Then 1 more single crochet into the same stitch. So you're going to continue doing this into every stitch. Once you get to the end of the round, make a slip stitch into the top of the first single crochet. You can now cut and weave in the end of your yarn. The body of the bag is done, so it's time to weave in the strings. I made 2 chains of 90 with the same yarn but different color, and they're 47 centimeters long. You can use any color you want. We're going to weave one in from the right and the other in from the left using these gaps in the last row of double crochets. I used my stitch markers to mark where to weave them in, and I've grouped together the beginning chain of 2 and the last 2 double crochet stitches, and the 23rd and 24th double crochet stitches. So once you've marked your stitches, we'll begin weaving in the chains. Using your yarn needle, insert the needle into the gap next to the first group of double crochets that we marked. Then weave the chain under and over the double crochets in groups of 2. Pull as you go and keep going all the way around. The chain should lead through the other gap next to the marked group where you started. This group should now be in between your two ends of the chain. You can now remove the needle and remove this stitch marker. Now adjust to make both ends the same length. You're going to do the exact same thing with the second chain. Insert the yarn needle into the gap next to the other group that you marked. Then weave it in and out of the same gaps as the other chain. Once you reach the last gap, remove the needle and remove the stitch marker. Then adjust to make all the ends the same length. Now tie a knot on both ends. Now cut off any remaining yarn ends. And we're done. Thank you for following along. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please consider supporting me by hitting the like button and subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. If you have friends or family who might like this tutorial, please share this video, and I'm always happy to hear from you, so please leave me a comment if you made this drawstring bag. So thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you again in my next video.